Please welcome Chief Executive Officer, the Priceline Group, Glenn Fogel, in discussion with Skift Executive Editor, Founding Editor, Dennis Schall.
Hello, New York. Buckle up, get ready. It's going to be an action-packed day. You don't want to miss a thing. Don't forget, you could ask Glenn questions through Slido and the Skift app. We're going to have 5 minutes of questions at the end, so do that for us, please. So this is an interesting, Glenn, thanks so much for being here.
Well, thanks for having me.
This is an interesting time in online travel. It just so happens that for the three largest online travel companies, Ctrip, Priceline Group, and Expedia, all have new CEOs. They were all deal people and strategy people. You got there in December. Jane's son got there in November. Mark Okerstrom got there at the beginning of this month when Dara took an Uber over to Uber. And ever since then, there's been these wild M&A rumors. Uber's going to buy Hotel Tonight. Uber's going to buy Lyft. Uber's going to buy Expedia. Amazon is going to buy somebody. TripAdvisor is out there. There's all this Chinese money available. So in your experience, do you think we're set for another wild ride in M&A and consolidation like we saw in 2014 and 2015 where Expedia and Ctrip bought everything that wasn't nailed down?
That's a very interesting question. You're asking me to predict the future regarding M&A, and I spent a long time before I joined Priceline as an M&A banker. And I think the one thing I knew about the future of M&A is I don't know what's going to happen in the future of M&A. The points you make are correct. There's a tremendous amount of capital out in the world right now. You have people looking for growth. You have people looking to move out beyond their core businesses. So sure, there could be some sort of combinations down the road too. On the other hand though, valuations are lofty by many, many measurements throughout the equities. It's not just our industry. If you look throughout all the tech world, the historical numbers are higher than they usually have been. So some people may feel it's a little too expensive to buy anything right now. Bottom line answer, I have no idea.
And if you don't know, I certainly don't. Let's look back in order to look forward. I was talking to you on the phone a few months ago, interviewing you, and we were talking about the history of Booking.com. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about disruption. And you said something that totally made sense, but I almost fell off my chair. For years, I've been writing that Booking.com changed the game in online travel, okay? Booking.com, and it turned all the other online travel agencies into imitators. Booking.com was doing the agency model where you pay at the hotel, and Expedia copied it. Booking.com was doing digital marketing when other companies were doing affiliate marketing. Mm-hmm. You had the message on the site, 7,564,322 people are looking at this hotel right now. If you don't buy it, you're a loser.
I don't think we said that, but something like that.
But then you said, you didn't think Booking.com was really a disruptor, that disruption came from outside the industry. I don't know if you remember talking about that, but could you elaborate on that a little bit about who have really been the disruptors in the last decade, let's say?
Right. So I vaguely remember this conversation. And when I said that Booking wasn't the disruptor per se, I think we're talking generally about the agency model. And we are all in the industry, we know the agency model, and that was something that had been executed for a very long time. So that's specifically what I think we're talking about disrupting. I believe our company has been disrupting many areas of the industry in all different areas. And whether you're looking at the way Booking.com, the way they do their marketing, and the way they're able to perfect really using that pay-for-performance type marketing that's been so powerful and so helpful for people to get what they want right away, to over open table, making it so easy for somebody, if you want a restaurant, to not have to go on the phone and wait and wait. And there's so many different areas that, so I think there have been a lot of areas of disruption. What's really exciting to me is how we are using technology, we're leveraging technology to make travel easier for everybody going forward. That's the, I mean, I love this job because every day there's something new and there's so many things that we're going to see coming down the road, taking that friction out. You know, you mentioned Dara and Uber, and let's face it, when Uber came out, who didn't say like, yeah, this is a lot easier than in the rain, standing out with your hand up, hoping somebody will pick you up, right? It's easy. There's so many things that we can be doing in travel, and we are doing in travel, to help take that type of friction out of the process.
So looking ahead, say the next 5 years, I'm asking you to put on your crystal ball again. What do you see as some of the things that you think will be a disruptor in travel? Mm-hmm. Is it, you know, artificial intelligence? Is it blockchain?
Yeah, so there are so many different things, and you try and pace it out. Because in our business, obviously the first thing we have to do is hit our numbers for our investor, our shareholders. That's core number one. And then you're thinking, okay, and we also want to invest for the future. You have to have some seed corn so things will grow down the road. And then you try which things are going to come first and which things are later. So when you mention AI, for example, AI, huge term, means so many different things to so many. And some of those things are happening right now, and you see that. You see that in chatbots, where natural language processing is making it so much easier to do sorts of customer service, for example, that can be much easier done.
And you just bought a company.
We did just buy a company, that's right, that's helping us perfect that. But then you go for the bigger issue of AI, and that's the thing, the vision of down the road, to have a system that will work not just like that old travel agent down the street who knew you and knew what you wanted and chose exactly what you had and you were happy. Make it better than that. Because AI and all the technology, that new system will never forget what your preferences are, will know you even better, and will be able to look throughout the world at everything. So I'll give you an example. That's something that I would like to see happen. Is, and I'm sure this happened to many people. You're going to the airport or something, and you get a notification that the flight has now been canceled or delayed, and you're already on the way. And then you're going to say, okay, now I have, great, it told me that I have a problem, but it's not solving the problem. I want it to automatically be solved. I want that flight to be rebooked immediately with not just the airline that I'm on, I want whatever airline has the one that's closest. And then once I get to that flight and I get off the flight and everything, I don't want to have that, oh wait, I have to change, I had a car service, now I have to change that because I'm on a new flight. I want that automatically done. And even more so, I want it to know that, wait, you did have a car service because you're going to land at this time, but when you're landing now, it's rush hour, so instead of taking the car service, you should be taking the light rail. And now my restaurant reservation is later. So I want that to automatically change. I want to notify the people. And more than anything, when I finally get to that hotel, I don't want to wait 10 minutes in line to check in. I want it to be automatic. I want my phone to be the key everywhere, not just with the big chains that can afford to make these kind of technology changes. I want every hotel to be like that. And then when I get into the room finally, because it's been a real stressful day, I want to have that mini fridge. I want it with the beer I want, not what everybody else wants. I want what I want. Mm-hmm. That's the vision.
And how close are we to getting there?
We're not so close.
Contrary to what other companies might tell you, and startups.
But we're getting there.
Okay.
And that's one of the benefits of being a big company, because with the scale we have, with the capital we have, with 22,000 employees, we can better direct towards that. That's one of the advantages of scale. Smaller companies cannot compete with larger scales because of that scale. And you know, it works well for the hotels too, by the way. One of the things that we're doing, because we'll be developing this technology, we're making it easier for the smaller hotels to be on a more level playing field. So a really huge chain that has tremendous IT resources, they are already developing that keyless entry, and maybe some of you have tried it, et cetera. But most of the hotels around the world, they can't afford that. We will be the guys who are helping make that happen.
I mentioned blockchain, which is a new kind of database which is supposed to be the equalizer. And the CEO of TUI announced that they have some of their hotels now on blockchain. They're playing around with that. And this is going to put companies like Expedia and Priceline out of business. You know, you guys are going to be left on the sideline. It's going to totally disrupt distribution. Are you ready to throw in the towel, or what's going on?
Yeah, I read that too. Look, blockchain technology, complex. I started out my career as an IT guy. I do not claim any excellent knowledge of how it's actually going to work at all, but I know a little bit about these things. They're going to take a lot longer than anybody thinks. Maybe it'll be helpful, maybe it won't be. We'll keep our eye on it, but that's not what we worry about today, and that's not what I'm going to worry about tomorrow. Yes, a possibility, not something that we have to all of a sudden start spending a huge amount of money and resources pouring in. Oh, we have to be right there.
Do you have people actively looking at it or testing it at all?
You know, one of the wonderful things about engineers is they're always curious, and they're always looking, and they're always coming to me, hey, maybe we ought to look at this. And I'm saying, yeah, definitely look. Right. Spend some time on it. Make sure we understand it. Make sure I'm not wrong. And make sure that I'm not going to be blindsided. Oh my God, tomorrow there's this whole new system and we don't have it. But from my understanding, from my conversation with the experts in the field in our company, they're saying, you got other things you can panic about.
Right. Speaking of panicking, our president just came out with a new travel ban, which to some people looks like a Muslim ban, except it's dressed up a little bit. What do you think of the travel ban? Has the disruption that it's caused had an impact on the company? I mean, you're a big global company. Maybe it has it, but how do you feel about it?
Yeah, round 3 right now with the ban. It's interesting because I read some of the data that's recently come out from the US government in terms of number of people who've come to the US and from different parts of the world. And there probably has been some impact in terms of those numbers, in terms of the overall global people coming here. But for our business, you've seen our numbers for Q2 and everything. They're good numbers.
Not so much.
They're good numbers.
And while we're talking about impact, can you say, you know, the recent hurricanes and the earthquake in Mexico, you know, we see like, you know, St. Martin, Puerto Rico, other places devastated, Florida. Has that had a financial impact on the company?
Well, look, first, you know, the first thing that anybody has to say whenever you talk about this is just such a tragedy. And our feelings go out to our sympathies to everyone out there. You know, we had people in destinations that were obviously being affected terribly by it. We have employees who are being affected terribly. It's tragic all over. One of the things about our business is we are a global company. You know, we are able to put you into 220, in places in 220 countries and territories around the world. And what we find is, no matter what the event is, whether it's a natural disaster, hurricanes, typhoons, earthquakes, man-made tragedies, or things like events, terrorist events, sometimes people don't want to go or cannot go to a certain place. What they do is they then change. So I imagine coming this winter, I imagine there will be some people who would previously have been thinking about going to certain parts of the Caribbean. They will now go to different parts of the Caribbean, or they will go to Mexico, the Cancun area, or something like that. For our business overall, though, because we're so global, these things sort of even out over time.
Right. Rafat mentioned earlier, he was talking about the issue of over-tourism. And you guys are, you know, headquartered in Amsterdam. Amsterdam has had issues with just being, you know, inundated with tourists. We've seen anti-tourism demonstrations in Barcelona. Venice is having a problem. You're in the business of, you know, of making a buck. You know, your duty is to your shareholders. But does there come a point that you can work with destinations on some of these issues, or is it just a matter of, and not just Priceline, but this is a question for the overall travel industry. Is it just send as many people there no matter what, or is there any way to work with some of these destinations in helping to, you know, work out a more sustainable solution?
All right, so I'm going to take a little issue with the way you portrayed big business.
Okay.
Because it's done many times by many people, and I really, really, really object to this. Because the purpose of the corporation is not that old, capitalist, just make a buck thing. That's not the purpose. The purpose is to be doing the right thing for all your stakeholders. Investors, absolutely, they are a stakeholder. Your employees, that's a stakeholder.
Right.
Your partners you do business with, they're a stakeholder. And the community, that's a stakeholder. If you want to be long-term successful, you've got to be recognizing that there are a lot more people and a lot more institutions that you need to deal with correctly, properly, fairly, and doing things the right way. And if you do things the right way, your business will succeed. So in an issue where a community perhaps is saying that there are too many tourists and we don't like this home sharing thing because now there aren't enough places for people to live full time, we work with those destinations. Barcelona is a perfect example. Okay. We have a huge, huge business that deals with people who, they don't want to stay in a hotel, they want to stay in a home, an apartment, whatever. Our business, we have 700,000 properties. Altogether, it's over 2 million, I think, listings of individual. But if a community like Barcelona, through their government, says that you have to have certain licenses and you have to follow certain rules, we do that. We are not a type of company that goes out and says, oh, screw the rules, we'll just do whatever we damn please and go, try and do something to us. And sometimes you see things in the press recently, when you have attitudes like that, sometimes that comes back and bites you. Mm-hmm.
Speaking of home sharing, I was going to ask you about that. So you mentioned Airbnb has 2 million instantly bookable properties. They have 4 million overall listings. You guys have about 721,000
properties,
which and
makes
about
up
2.5 million instantly booked. All your listings are instantly bookable.
Okay.
So 2 questions.
Yes.
Are you getting short shrift in the alternative lodging space? Are people sort of overlooking you as a major player? And is there room in that space for 3 major players? We have Airbnb, we have Expedia/HomeAway, and we have Booking.com. Is there room for all 3, and what's your strategy for getting bigger?
All right, so we have a very big business, as you pointed out, and we certainly are aware that in certain parts of the world, particularly, I guess, America, that perhaps we're not top of mind when somebody thinks of that place. But that is something that absolutely we are working on because we think we have a great product. And I'll tell you something about our product and why I like our product so much, because I went on a summer vacation. And I went to Iceland with my family. I have 2 teenage kids. I got a girl and a boy.
I was there too.
I didn't see you.
I didn't see you either.
Because it's a very hot place, 2 million visitors. Where did you?
And only 300,000 people.
I know. Where did you stay?
Alfred's Apartments.
Apartments. Did you use Booking?
I used Expedia. Sorry, Glenn.
Let me tell you why it would have been so good for you, us the way I used it, okay? So we didn't know, should we use an apartment or a hotel with the 2 kids? And we got 2 hotel rooms.
I brought 3 kids.
Okay.
Yep.
All yours, I assume.
Yes.
Okay. So the thing is, though, on our site, on Booking.com, the first thing that I absolutely loved is that it showed all the choices on one page. So I can compare right away. This hotel, this apartment, this hotel. And
that's very different from your competitors.
Exactly, and that's a great thing right there. The fact that everything was instantly bookable was huge because my wife, she actually looked at a competitor, maybe your thing, sends off an email, a couple days later gets an email back, oh, I'm sorry, we can't rent it. What a pain, friction, don't like that. Our thing, everything is immediately bookable, confirmable right there. And the last thing is, we're not charging any traveler a fee. That's the other thing, no traveler fee. So from my point of view, it's like, our thing is great, but you're right. We need to do a better job making sure that the American consumer is just as aware of how great that product is as everywhere else in the world.
But are you avoiding certain inventory types, like the apartment shares, like Airbnb? You're a public company, you have to obey the law.
Our belief is that if it's legal, we'll rent it. It's that simple. So if the community, if the government and laws say you can, we will do it. If they say you cannot, we will not.
Okay. There's a lot of hoteliers in the audience today, and the American Hotel and Lodging Association says that you and Expedia are a duopoly, and that your harming consumers, you're harming the hotel industry. Where are they going wrong?
You know, I read that too. The travel industry, it's well over $1 trillion industry, well over $1 trillion. We have a mid-single-digit percentage of that business. So right away, you start scratching your head about this. Now, it's true, we are big. You know, we mentioned over 700,000 properties. We're a big player. We can help you get a place, 220 countries and territories around the world. But what we're doing is something that is so crucial. And I mentioned that earlier about leveling the playing field and such. So example, let's say you're a small hotel in Paris, okay? We all know that there's a tremendous amount of outbound business coming out of China, lots of tourists out of China. And one of the places they love to go is Paris. You're at the little hotel in Paris. How are you going to get the Chinese tourists to know about your little hotel? You can't afford to do all the advertising in China. Big hotels can do that. How are you going to get somebody? We do it. We translate our stuff into 43 languages. Even more so, go for something going forward, down the road. So when people are doing more of just calling out to Alexa, hey, I need a room in London, book me a room. You think that little hotel is going to be able to do all the technology for that? They're not going to do that. The big guys will be able to do that. Kayak already has that capability, already came up with that technology, it already works right now. So we are leveling the playing field. I leave it to others to think, maybe because we're leveling the playing field, somebody wants to make press that aren't so good about us. And I let that to others to try and think about.
Speaking of Kayak, Kayak's competitor, Trivago, who you've all seen on TV, that's for sure, recently lowered their guidance. And there's been some reporting that the Priceline group lowered its spend and lowered its visibility in Trivago. Last year, the Priceline group was responsible for 43% of Trivago's revenue. So are you pulling back from Trivago? Is this just a Priceline Trivago thing? Or are you having second thoughts about the meta search space in general?
So, one of the most important things in any business is your marketing. And trying to figure out what's the right spend, where do you spend it, what time do you spend it. And so we're always changing that. We're always varying and trying to come up with what is the best return for us. What's the best return for us right now, and what's building our brand long term. And I talked a little bit about that in our earnings call back a few months ago, how important it is that we want to make sure that when people are thinking where they're going to book, we want them to be thinking of Booking.com and Agoda and Priceline. And when they're thinking about flights, they're thinking Kayak. And when the Open Table, these are the things that we want them to think. So we want to build those brands. So our marketing department is always experimenting, always doing different things.
So what we saw recently with Trivago isn't necessarily what we might see next year with the way you approach Trivago.
Well, no, I would say this, and this is so critical. Another part about business and marketing is what you don't want to do is tell your competitors what your plans are, how much you're going to spend now, how much you're going to spend later, and stuff. So I want to make it perfectly clear. I've said absolutely nothing.
He did not mention Trivago. We figure that you're going to spend more than $4 billion on digital marketing this year. Expedia is going to spend nearly $3 billion. How important is it to you in the long term to reduce that dependence on Google, to drive more direct traffic to your websites and apps in order to increase the lifetime value of your customers?
Yeah, no, and I did mention that, how important it is to us in the long run. Because, one of the things that I think is, when you look at the most successful companies in the world, and you look like an Amazon or an Alibaba or those things, where people are going directly to that. They're not going through an intermediary, no gatekeeper type thing. And that's what we want to do. Now, one of the ways you do that is be creating a service or a product that is so great, so wonderful, that nobody thinks of anything else. That's where we want to be, and then you have to make sure that people are aware of that. Do those two things together, and eventually you'll have that.
Do you see any other platforms emerging? Is Facebook emerging as a real alternative to Google, or is it still a long way to go? Or some of these messaging systems or chatbots or the digital assistants, will they be sort of a lever against Google?
It is interesting, Facebook, and we've talked about this in the past, how we are continuing to work with them, to try and improve their way to reach out to their customers, to make sure they're aware of our services, to try and get more people to come to us through Facebook, and we're working closely with them, try and build it. But it's absolutely no secret that they are nowhere near where Google in terms of providing customers. Your point about WeChat was a good one. So we have this whole new technology coming out, this messaging platform where e-commerce, et cetera, and these very, very complicated but very tightly integrated type systems. And this goes back to where we provide a service to the entire travel industry, because this stuff is complex, it's hard, and it can be expensive to develop it. And by us being, one could almost think like a system integrator, and helping make sure that we're helping them get those customers from the WeChat people are going to use WeChat. People in America, when they're thinking about going to travel right now, are not thinking, for the most part, about messenger platforms and things like that. They may down the road. And small hotels, are they going to now have to build all their capital into a whole new system? That's how we provide this advantage. And we do it at scale and at much lower cost than anybody could do it on their own. So it's actually it's helping all of us do it better.
Right. I'm going to sneak in one more question before we go to the audience. You recently added flights to Booking.com, a flight tab to Kayak.
Yes.
How's that working out? Are you going to go bigger in that space? Airbnb is considering doing flights.
Yeah, so we're always experimenting all the time in different combinations of what works, what doesn't work. And it's, and this is something, because everybody here knows how the digital industries work, is that we are all living on this giant experimentation platform. And we're all consciously trying new things, and if they work, we'll do more, and if it doesn't work, we'll stop. And that's the way we're going to go forward with the Kayak booking things we're doing, testing, and anything else at all times. How it'll turn out, I don't know. The data's not in yet.
Okay, some audience questions. What about Priceline's investments that haven't worked out so far, like OpenTable?
Well, So what that person is probably referring to is a year ago, we took a write-down which said that the value of our acquisition of OpenTable was less on the accounting books, and that requires an accounting adjustment for that. That says nothing about how fast it's growing. That says nothing about in terms of how many more restaurants we have. And it doesn't say anything about how we feel about the future of OpenTable. And I absolutely believe, and I hope you kind of caught on for everything I'm talking about, this idea of bringing everything together in travel so everything is easier. I so believe that. When I go to a hotel in London, let's say, I want OpenTable to be suggesting to me the restaurants that they know so much about me that these would be good for me in London, and they're just close to this hotel, and even more so, I want those restaurateurs to have an ability to market to me, this transient guy who's coming in and has never been to any of these restaurants before, for them to try and get me. Think about it as a marketing platform for a restaurateur. It's great. And there's so many different things. So I say that it's good. I love what we're doing at OpenTable, and I'm sure we'll see some more things down the road.
Let's see. What region do you see growth from in the future? Which regions are key? I know you're, China. You have a partnership with Ctrip. What regions have your keen interest at this point?
China. China is absolutely, without doubt, the most important market, outbound, inbound, the travel industry. If you don't have a China strategy, you're just not going to be part of the growth for the next decade or 2 decades. And anywhere you go in the world now, you see lots of Chinese travelers. So you have to make sure that you are doing what a Chinese traveler wants you to provide. So yes, we have an investment in Ctrip, that's correct. We also have a very, very big strategy on our own, and we're building brand there, and we're building localization. We are on the road. We're not there yet, but we're on the road to almost 1,000 employees soon. Wow. In China, 3 customer service centers. We have all the integrations with WeChat. We're doing stuff. You want to pay with Alipay, we can do that. That's the type of thing you have to do if you want to be successful in China. You've got to get there, you got to be there, and you got to understand how things are done there.
I'm going to tweak one question we got here. The question was, can you comment on the trend of cancellation policy changes in the hotel space? And I'll add to that, when is the Priceline Group going to address corporate travel more heavily?
So let me go with the issue of cancellations. One of the great uses of Booking.com, one thing we know our customers love, is when people can book a hotel, but if for some reason something changes, they can cancel it, and they don't have to pay anything. That's a great, great benefit. The customer likes it, and you know something? If a hotel doesn't want to do that, they can very easily change their pricing policies and say that, hey, here's the price for the cancelable, here's the price for the non-cancelable, and they can vary it anyway. One of the things that we really try and do, in our view of how we deal with our supplier partners, our hotel friends, is make it totally up to them what they want to do. We don't tell them what to do, they choose what to do. And that's fine by us. We just provide that tool. Now, some hotels will say something to the effect of, well, I have to do it because my competitor does it. Yeah, that's called competition.
That's an everyday reality. And addressing corporate travel more heavily?
So we have our booking business unit, which goes out and does that, and it's growing very, very, very nicely. I'm not sure where we'll be a year from now in terms of if you talk the full travel management company thing. It's not going to be in the next year or so, but we'll see how things go along.
One last question here. Did Priceline miss the boat in Latin America? Expedia bet on Despegar, now valued at over $2 billion. They did an IPO last week. How will Priceline be able to catch up in the region?
Well, that person is making an assumption that we're not already the #1 player in Latin America. Now, I am not saying we are or we're not. I'm saying that person has no idea what our numbers are in Latin America.
What are your numbers in Latin America?
I can't tell you. But we are very strong there. We have a great product. We have a tremendous number of offices throughout the region, and I've visited there many, many times, and I think we're doing a great, great, great job there.
Great. Thank you so much, Glenn.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.